and welcome to Wordpath, the show about Oklahoma Indian languages and the people who are teaching and preserving them. Tonight we're going to see more from this year's Preston Language Conference, sponsored by the Oklahoma Native Language Association and Northeastern State University. This conference takes place in Preston, a little town a few miles north of Okmulgee, Oklahoma, each October. The presenter this time is Brian Levy. He's executive director of the Kiwat Hasine Foundation, and he's a former guest on the Wordpath show. Actually, he's a former crew member a few years back. He's a leader in the field of technological information about sound and video recordings for archiving purposes. I need to apologize a little bit for the video. I'm giving him the remote camera credit, but he had to just sort of set the camera up and go up and give his talk, and unfortunately he cut off the top of his head throughout most of it. But we are kind of focusing on the equipment and the words, so I think it's very much worth seeing. You may only see his face briefly, but it's some really useful information. Let's take a look at the tape.
Around a brochure for our nonprofit organization that works with language. Basically, I just wanted to share a little bit about the work that Kiwat Hasine Foundation is doing to help preserve the Caddo language and other oral traditions. Unfortunately, my friends couldn't join me today, or they won't be to be here till Saturday, so I was going to do this as we were going to do kind of a panel discussion, or we were all going to present it, but it falls on me to just try to share what we've been doing. So I brought a lot of the archiving equipment that we use for recording and preserving Caddo stories and songs and language in general, prayers and monologues. And the last thing that we do, and it's a huge thing in itself, is the archiving, which we see as basically a backup to what happens if we are not successful. We need a backup. I mean, I don't think it's fair to not do that, although I know that some people feel that if we don't pass the language on in a living form now, then let it go. But I've actually never heard any Caddo elders say that. I've heard other tribal elders say that. I've never heard a Caddo elder say that. I worked with one of the most knowledgeable elders named Wilson, and he said, you know, he sometimes says pessimistic things like, you know, it's too late. He said, but we can at least leave a memory for the grandkids, for the ones who are coming after. That's how he puts it. And he's been very committed to sharing his knowledge both in oral history and in language and in Caddo stories on tape. So I just want to show you just a little brief. Last thing I want to show you was the technology we use for that, which is for recording elders. We use a digital tape recorder, and this tape recorder costs about $500. And if you can get grant money to get one of these, it's very convenient because of its size, and it's really good in terms of the sound quality. It records digitally onto little tapes that look like little VCR tapes, and right now they cost less than $2 each. We use Sony ones. I'm going to get some Xeroxes made and some handouts that I can give out tomorrow that have addresses for the companies that we buy tapes from. We think they're the cheapest and the best places to get them. If you find something better, please let us know. We order these, we've ordered countless DAT tapes, and I want to do just an example of that right now. These machines are so much easier to use if you get the tape in. Because they keep track of everything on the tape. Like they keep track of not just the counter, like on a regular tape recorder, it counts just clicks like 1 to however many, you can find where you are on the tape by that. But with a DAT tape, it records the time. As long as you keep the batteries in it, it knows that right now it's set for the 11th of October, and it's 1:46 in the afternoon. And so when I record right now, it's going to mark the tape in that way. And that's convenient because if you mislabel your tapes, which we label really carefully everything, like the location and who did the recording and who's being recorded and what it's about, as much as we can. If we're doing, like if an elder's talking about oral history, in English, we write down the topics as much as we can without looking like too much like a reporter or something, or breaking the flow of it. But all you need is this little tiny digital Sony microphone that costs $100. I mean, they make better ones, but we can't afford it. I mean, our budgets are small at this point. We've not gotten any big grants, but so I'm going to record right now. I want to do one CD just to show you just an example of the whole process of what we do to make the Caddo archive. And when I said it was a backup in case we're not successful in passing the language on, or some of these songs or ways that are in danger of not being passed on, it also can be used as a teaching tool now. So it's not just a backup option. It also could have use now. I mean, there are caddos living far away from Oklahoma who've called us asking for language tapes, and we've mailed tapes to Hawaii. So in that sense, since we don't have an internet way to provide it yet, we don't have anything like that, we are able to actually mail these little. We make blank CD, we make CDs or tapes and mail those. DAT tapes are just to record; they're not to preserve. They're not like permanent. We've had to learn all about archiving. It's somewhat complicated, and I've sort of put everything that I've learned into some papers that I've written in the past 6 months or so that I'll pass out, or that I'll Xerox, and if you want a copy, it talks about the process that I've learned, because I'm on the internet, I'm on these mailing lists where people write emails and they get distributed to everybody, from people at like the Library of Congress, the British Royal Library, or the sound recording industry in Sweden, people who are faced with the job of making recordings from the 20th century last into the 28th century. And it's it's a very difficult thing. It's not like you just make a tape and put it on a shelf, because everything degrades with time, and the older forms of tapes, they degrade kind of like on a curve like that. They start off playing really well, and then they get crackly, and then they get worse and worse, but you can still pretty much hear them, they just don't sound as good. That's the thing about those, they're called analog. Analog recording is that way. I'm talking the old reel-to-reel tapes, and I'm talking regular cassette tapes. But the thing is, with these new digital technology, like these digital audio tapes that I'm showing you right now, or with the CDs, they're not analog, they're digital, which means they work like computers. They store information in the forms of ones and zeros. I don't really understand how that works, but I just know that as they degrade, as the atmosphere interacts with the reflective coating on the back of the CD, what you start getting is not like crack hissing or anything like as an old reel-to-reel. Like we have Caddo recordings from the 50s that we're transferring to CD as part of what we do. We're trying to preserve all the recordings of Caddo we can find that are in private collections. We're trying to get people to let us make digital copies for the Caddo archive that we're producing, which is housed at the Caddo Tribal Museum in Dinger, and also off-site at the Oklahoma Historical Society in Oklahoma City. And also we have one backup copy in an underground vault and storage location in Kansas that provides storage for companies, and Hollywood uses it for the original copies of Gone with the Wind. In other words, it's a complete backup because it's 650 feet below ground, and they don't charge very much. They charge like $125 to store like 500 CDs a year. We see that as the total backup. In case Oklahoma, tornado or whatever should hit Oklahoma City really bad again, or Binger. I mean, you have to, I think when you're archiving precious recordings, you have to think in terms of multi-site archives, and then in each site you have to think in terms of your environmental conditions. Keep all media out of sunlight completely. I know that sunlight will destroy a digital videotape like what I'm recording with there. That's digital video. It's the new kind of analog video, like everything before this next generation. I think it can handle the sunlight a little better, but those are so sensitive. CDs are really sensitive, these recordable CDs. But so keep it out of sunlight, keep it out of humidity. And when you're handling the media, treat it like the most precious thing. I mean, don't ever touch the back side of it. Hold your CDs around the edges. And when you put them in, make sure you don't, if you're using one of these so-called jewel cases, make sure you just pop them in carefully, pushing on the center, don't push on anything else, and do not write on them. That's another thing I've learned by the process of doing this research is they make what are called CD-safe pens that you can order from the same place where you order the blank media, like the place that I'm going to give you the number for. But don't write on them unless the only one I would write on would be like a copy that you're making for personal use. Like let's say your tribal museum or your tribal archive has a set of 100 CDs that you've made of songs and oral history and language in various forms. You're going to have what's a usage copy, and you're going to have an archival copy. The usage copy, you might write something like, Caddo CD number 138, and write like, Randlet sing peyote songs or whatever, May 12, 1982. That's okay, but just the very act of writing on the CD, you've reduced its longevity by a certain amount, which nobody knows exactly. These people who make these CDs, these CDs here run for about $1 each. They are gold. There's two kinds of CDs, gold and silver. That's all in the article I'm going to give you, so I won't go too much in detail about it now. But they found that silver CDs, most people say, are not as archival. They don't last as long because the silver forms silver dioxide with pollutants in the atmosphere, no matter where you are, even out in the country, but especially in a city. So they found silver wasn't as good, and so gold is better. And there's also two kinds of coating underneath it. There's two kinds, one called phthalocyanine and the other's called something else. I think phthalocyanine is the one you want, but I have that in there. And I know that this Kodak Ultima Gold is a really good brand. Mitsui makes a good brand too, and there are others. But so you don't write on it for your archival copy. So you might wonder, well, how do you keep track of it? Well, I'm going to even say beyond not writing on it, you also don't want any paper in there. So when you buy them, you take the CD, you take the case apart, and you take out this advertising stuff, and you just put the CD case back together like this. And the way you keep track of it is, we use a database program on the computer. We use FileMaker Pro. That's a really good one for making dictionaries too. You keep your CD in there, and if this were going to be an archival copy, I wouldn't have written on it. This is what you would look at. And we used you heard of a Dremel? It's like to etch wood and stuff. They're like $30 at Walmart or whatever. You can take that and take your CD out of here and etch the Caddo CD number 138, and then what you do is, turns out every CD has a unique serial number on the little part in the middle. This one is 03143271, which is the series, and the last four are the unique numbers, which in this case is 1789. So what we do is we etch, and this is what they do at the library, the British Royal Library. That's where I learned this from these people who have responsibility for enormous sound recordings that go back, the early part of the century. But they really want these things to last forever, as we obviously want these things to last forever, these recordings. So you would etch the serial number here, 031432711789, Caddo CD 138. Then you write when it was burned, like October burn is what they call making a CD, when it was recorded, October 11th, 2001. And then if it was copied from another CD, you have the option of recording it at 1 times speed, 2 times speed, 4 times speed, etc. You write that too. You want to put as much information about how it was made as possible, because that way you can watch with time and see how it's holding up. Because what we hope to have the money to get is a CD tester that costs about $2,000, where you pop the CD in and it tells you how many errors it's making, and you can compare that, and you can do it every 3 months or 6 months or whatever. I think we probably do it every 6 months, and compare and see how much it's deteriorating with time, so you'll know when to make a new backup of your CD. The good news is, when you make a backup of a CD, it sounds just like the original. It's not like when you make a backup, like you take a reel-to-reel tape and make a copy to another reel. You lose some quality every time you do it. With digital copies, the copy is exactly the same as the original, out to at least 15 generations, I'm told. So, that shouldn't be a problem in making copies. But anyway, there's a lot of details to this. Don't be overwhelmed by it. It took me a year or two of getting used to it to kind of get a sense of all the things you have to be careful with. I've written some down. You can learn from that, and you can also research on the internet yourself. And it's not that complicated once you get the hang of it. I mean, there's just little things you have to be careful with about, just all the steps about taking the paper out, not writing on the CD, keeping it out of environmental dangerous conditions. And then if you want to make a copy, the thing is, once you have your 150 CDs at the tribal copy of it at the archive at the tribe, or you have a copy at the Historical Society, or wherever you might house it at NSU at the
special collections.
As special collections. And then you might decide, like the Caddo elders have said, these recordings are principally and mainly just for the Caddo people and not for researchers like linguists from the Czech Republic that come in and study Caddo verbs. So, if they feel that way, and if you're dealing with, I think in a lot of cases there will be that feeling that this is not just for anybody, you have to get a restricted access policy, which has been difficult to do at OHS, but at the Historical Society they're working on that policy right now. Can they let us house the growing Caddo archive collection and not make it open access, but rather either you have to present a Caddo tribal identity card or a letter from the Caddo Council giving you permission to use it. So a researcher can't just walk in and start using stuff. That's another issue. But anyway, I'm recording this now, and for some reason it's not working. That's really odd. That's just really, really annoying. Hello? Now what the heck is it doing? The battery seems to be working. Oh, I know what's doing. I have this thing there. Like I said, there's always little variables. There we go. That should be working. Hello? Yes, now we're working. Now, so it's recording us laughing. This DAC recorder is so sensitive that it picks up the air conditioning. So when you're making recordings, try to, as much as possible, if you're in an environment where it's not too hot, maybe turn off the air conditioning. I mean, there have been times in the middle of July when that obviously was not an option. But if you're, like right now, I don't think anybody would suffer with no air conditioning on, so this is actually a better recording than if we had the vent blowing. You're picking that up, it sounds like I mean, basically, if you listen to what's going on right now, all the sounds that are going on, this picks up perfectly. It'll pick up the background conversations in the kitchen, it'll all be on the tape. That's how good it is. Certainly pick up, don't step on your little thing here. Now, so while it's finishing just a short little sample of that, and I know I've got to watch the time, I have 5 more minutes. What I've done is I put the CD in. No, I haven't. That's because it's right here. Number one rule: you have to put the media in the machine. It usually helps to make it record. So this is a double CD burner. Again, I talk about this in the paper, but they make 2 kinds of CD burners. There's the external kind that stand alone like this. The bottom one here is a CD burner. The top is just a regular tape player. We have a bunch of old collections of Caddo tapes on regular cassette. We just hook the cassette player into the CD burner using these regular white and red cords that we're used to with stereos. Those are regular analog adapters, just a Y connector. We just hook it in the back of the CD burner, and then we can make a copy of a cassette that sounds perfectly, very good on the CD. And once you've done that, it's digitalized, which means you can capture it on your computer, you can edit it. There's all kinds of things you can do once it's on CD, if you have the money and the time, which we have not had a lot of either to do that. We're producing very raw material. This is just like not edited, but we're producing from the archive. We figure other people can edit it later if they find that useful to take out the parts in English or optimize the sound quality on the old recordings. But I can tell you the old recordings sound really, really good on CD. I want to play a little bit of some Caddo social dances that I've recorded. I left it in my car, so I'll have to get it in a minute.
Now, if you have cassette tapes,
Yeah.
you still have to hook the player up to your burner.
Yes.
Or use one that will hook up.
If you have cassette tapes, just take a regular. I bought this for about $100, which is pretty expensive for a cassette player nowadays. And for $100, you get a really good dual cassette deck. I got this at Circuit City in Oklahoma City. You just hook it in using these regular. I'm not going to demonstrate it right now, so I'm going to show you. Just use a regular adapter and you got that. That's how you.
I thought you said that was reel, but that's a cassette.
That's cassette. A really real player I bought off of eBay. It's an old Sony and it's about this big. I wish I could afford a really good new reel player because we're in the process of recording a lot of old Caddo reel recordings, like the first Caddo language class from 1971. It's amazing. These 2 speakers, Jessica Duncan and Nelson Williams, back in 1971, had a language class, and people recorded it back then using these big reel-to-reels. Well, Now we're making CDs for the archive, and these are like, there are words and things that we've never heard anybody say now. So I mean, we're finding things, real treasures, just like treasure hunting. I would encourage anyone to go out and find people with private collections of recordings of language. And I think it's especially critical with a tribe where the language is down to fewer than 100 speakers, like many, unfortunately, several tribes in the state. I mean, if you still have a couple of thousand speakers, you can make a lot of new recordings. But when you're down to as few as 25 or less than 10, it's hard to make enough recordings because people are not necessarily in great health and you can't just do it all the time. I mean, it's a slow process, so that makes it all the more critical to go out and save the older recordings because you don't know what's there. I've heard rumors of incredible things we haven't even found yet that if we find, we're going to be really excited. And like nobody sings the songs. All the Caddos say nobody sings the songs the way they used to, back when everybody had Caddo as their first language. They don't sing it quite the same way. They don't make the sounds the same. And these older recordings do sound different. And so, I mean, my Caddo friends that listen to these recordings, they have a whole collection for home use from the archive because they're so beautiful and because they miss those days when people sang the way these singers sang in the 60s. And so there is a value that people are using them. They're not just sitting on a shelf, they're being used. And so, anyway, I'm sorry. I hope this is somewhat organized. I mean, I know it's not organized, that's clear. I'm improvising this, but I mean, I hope I'm covering enough of what I want to share of what we've been doing, what I've learned, and I hope some of it's useful, and I want to just show you, come on. So, I finished recording with the little microphone, whatever just happened, and what the heck is... It doesn't easily... Now look, it doesn't eject just like a regular thing, so when you eject it, it has to like motorize, open up. Come on, there we go. Then it has to be quiet for a minute, and you close it again. What the heck? And it says words on the screen like end or top. That means top of the tape. It's not the top of the tape, so it's just joking. It's saying it again, like it's reiterating, top, top, top. That can't be true. Please. Oh, maybe it is the top of the tape. Okay. Well, then that's good. What I'm going to do is, now, to make a CD, this is the crux of it. You can't just take these DAT tapes and put them on a shelf and consider that your archive, because DAT tapes last about 3 years. They're very much not archival. They get what's called digital dropout. I was talking earlier about how analog tapes degrade like this, or you could say like this. Digital media like DAT tapes and CDs, when they degrade, they kind of do this and then bam. And when they drop out, at a certain point, the errors, it gets too many errors for the computer. CD players have computers in them, even the most basic little CD Walkmans. And they have, every kind of CD player has error correction, but no CD player can correct errors after a certain point. And you'll start getting skips. I have it on my CDs I buy in the store, like Madonna. They get scratches in them, she'll be singing, they'll start just like singing one note, it's like, you have to kind of speed search past that because it just gets totally stuck. Well, that would be tragic if that happened with old Caddo Ghost Dance songs from 1960 that we preserved digitally onto CD that are exquisite and that there's no other copies. There might be 4 copies in our multi-site archive, but what if they all degraded like this? So that's what I was talking about. What we want is a CD tester. So that you stick it in and you actually can see a readout of the errors. And that way you know when it's starting to get time to back your tapes, your CDs up. So CDs are not permanent. They're not permanent, and that's one of the things I was saying. And the last thing I was going to say was, let's make the CD. That's what I was going to say. So, without going into the details of how this thing works, it makes a digital copy. I press record on there. I press play on here, and I hook. Just so you can hear it, I brought these little miniature speakers. This is the one that turns on. That's my great aunt. I'm doing oral history with my family because I got inspired by the work I was doing with the Caddos, and I said, well, I want to do this for my family with my elders. So I work with my great aunt. Doesn't matter. She's talking about some different stuff, but so. All right. So now to make it record. To make it record, I just hooked this in with a digital cable. And now, okay, so now I'm recording. We're able to listen to it and monitor it. I like to do that. I like to listen to the tapes just to, because sometimes when I'm copying from DAT tape, that's when I do some editing. Like if there'll be a part that's just in Caddo with a bunch of English around it, but like a part where there's a prayer in Caddo or anything that's just Caddo language, I'll make that into a separate track on the CD, so that it'll be already, I'm doing some editing to help find the parts that are mostly Caddo language.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for sharing your presentation with the Wordpath show. I want to close tonight with a brief announcement. The Intertribal Wordpath Society will be holding its second bookmarks reception on Saturday, November 17th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Jacobson House in Norman. That's on Chautauqua. This time we'll be featuring the new Creek Dictionary by Jack Martin and Margaret Malden, and possibly some other books as well. See you next time on Wordpath.
Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene manaone.